You are now listening.
You are now listening
to the Black Male Educators Alliance podcast.
Lifting our voices.
Lifting our voices.
There we go. Welcome back to another episode of BMEA podcast, Lifting Our Voices. I'm Chris Watson, joined by my co-host, as always. Got Mr. Michael Payne. How you doing, Mike?
Good, Chris. How you doing?
Good, man. You sound real clear. You got a new mic. So yeah, HD. Like you.
No, I got clear.
Yeah, the mic fixed.
All right. I never heard Mike that clear. Okay. Kurt, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right, man. Doing all right.
Good. We're excited about tonight's episode. Got some great stuff to get to. Some special guests joining us, and we just started Women's History Month. We're excited about celebrating all the great women around the world in our lives. So
holding it down.
Yeah, absolutely. Where would we be without them?
Man, talk about it. Yeah. Starting with my grandma and then my mama.
Okay. Come on, man. You can't. I got the one mom and then I'm joking.
You do. Hey, say your mama.
Yeah. All right. Well, you may notice we're down a member. Jerry, our normal host, who kind of leads us through. He's unavailable. He had an important engagement that he couldn't miss, so he won't be with us this evening. However, we are very fortunate to be joined by a great supporter of BMEA. She's family. She's also a board member and a phenomenal educator. So we're going to bring her on because she's actually the first official co-host. We're gonna bring her on right now before we can get the show started. So I introduce to some, present to others, however they say that the right way. Dr. Marini Lee. Let's get Marini in here. Hey, Dr. Lee, welcome.
Thank you.
How you doing?
I'm doing well today. How are you?
Doing good.
Look at all regal over there. I see you.
Celebrating you. Let's celebrate you in this history.
Celebrating you. Absolutely.
Thank you kindly. Appreciate you.
Yes. So before we jump into our check-in, actually let's do the check-in first. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback, not exactly sure where it's coming from. But maybe we do a little bit of, I work on the audio here, making sure that, we keep it clear for the listeners. But as we always start the show, we do a check-in just to see what's new with everybody over the past 2 weeks. So how about Mike, you start us off, let the listeners know how you've been and what's going on with you.
I'm well. Just, still working, planning on, how we get these kids back in the building. I got my first vaccine shot, which was interesting. So I'm trying to advocate for others to, do if they, feel comfortable and safe with it, get that first vaccine. And shouts out to Detroit. It was super easy and convenient. I actually just got a text message that they're moving my second shot up. So hopefully I'll be fully vaccinated, invincible in the streets. Just kidding. Keep wearing your mask, people. Keep wearing your mask.
You're in Texas and you're going to be invincible.
Nah, I'm leaving
Mississippi.
Now. I'm leaving Texas alone. But prayers out to Texas people during the storm. Prayers out to Jackson, Mississippi. You still don't have clean water, working water. So shouts out to those places right now.
Cool. Curtis, what's going on with you, sir?
Man, I'm good. I have not gotten my vaccine yet, but I was waiting on Johnson & Johnson. I used that since I was a kid, so I'm familiar with Johnson. I didn't know who Pfizer was or Moderna. So when they say Johnson and they got the one shot, that's what so I'm one of them guys. Like, let me be sick one time. Like, I don't want to go through this twice. Wait, anxiety goes up another 3 or 4 months. So I'm calling I get Johnson & Johnson because that's the shot I'm taking for sure. So I'm looking forward to that. So shout out to you, Payne. I'm glad they're moving it up for you. That's great, but I'm trying to do one shot. I'm good, man. I my foot, about a month ago when I was on, my foot still messed up. I ain't gonna tell you what else I was dealing with this week. That's just personal. It's just, but I'm good. I'm feeling good today. Happy to be here. Looking forward to a good conversation today. I'm happy to celebrate women this month. Like, let's go. Like, absolutely. Seriously.
Absolutely. Dr. Lee, check in. Let us know how you're doing.
I am doing well. Thank you, Payne, for getting vaccinated. Thank you for Curtis when you get vaccinated. I'm also waiting on the Johnson and Johnson, but full disclosure, I got COVID in January, and so I have some antibodies that I'm trying to donate, and I'm going to try to donate as much as I can. And then when I don't have any more, then I want to get vaccinated. So. But other than that, I'm doing well. I was just telling someone I'm over here prospering in a pandemic, trying not to feel guilty about it, but doing great things, feeling great. I was asymptomatic, so like even my COVID experience was good if one could be good. So I am blessed, highly favored, all that good stuff.
Yes, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. For me, and like I said, I'm playing on the audio. So if you see people saying something don't hear us because we have a little audio issues. But for me, I'm feeling good. I was talking with one of our leadership team members, Sarah Feldman, the other day. She told me she had did 100 rounds of her Peloton. And I remember when she was talking about maybe getting one, I already had mine for a couple months. So she didn't like double me up. So March, I'm 4 for 4 so far, riding on the Peloton every day. So we're trying to keep it up and, health as well. So trying to just be consistent with that. So y'all pray for me and encourage me. Yeah. All right. So
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Are we ready to jump in? I know we have a lot on the agenda. Before we even bring our guests, as always, to the listeners, we want to hear from you. I see we have some people in the comments. Oh, okay. Thank you, Sarah. You got this. Let's just highlight that one for a second.
You got this vibe. Of course.
Put that up on the big screen. So, we also had another comment saying, welcome, Dr. Lee. We appreciate you joining us. So, yeah, we love to hear from the viewers out there. You can comment on Facebook. We can bring your questions up. So definitely don't be shy. Also, you can still share this with your network right now so we can get other people listening in and tuning in for tonight's conversation. All right. With that being said, we're ready to bring up our first guest today. I want to let Mike do the intro here, even though this guest doesn't need much of an introduction, but Mike, take it away.
So today our special guest is Colin Seale. He actually did a session for us earlier this year around thinking critically. He's an author, attorney, and he does a lot of work for educators around helping them think differently around what kids need to do to be critical thinkers. So I'm not going to spend too much time introducing him, let him introduce himself, but here we go. Welcome, Colin Seale.
Hey, man, thank you so much. I'm really, really excited to be here. I'm over here cracking up, listening about Curtis, talking about Johnson and Johnson. All I'm seeing is ashiness from baby powder. And you're trusting that baby powder. And to be real, that was giving all kids all sorts of cancer, whatever have you. And that's what you're going to trust for that one shot? That could be one shot of a whole lot of nonsense, but it's all good. Happy to be here and be building with y'all tonight because I'm over here cracking jokes by myself. So I'm excited, man.
Excellent. Well, let's go ahead and can you just maybe introduce yourself to the listeners if a person maybe doesn't know about you, just introduce yourself before we jump in.
Yeah. So I'm Colin Seale. I am from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised, super, super proud. Just like every Brooklyn person is super, super proud of being from Brooklyn. Currently live in Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm a math teacher who worked in child welfare, went back to teaching math, started to go to law school at night. And I realized that a lot of the critical thinking we were doing in the law was exactly what our kids needed in school. Like making claims backing it up with evidence, looking at things from different perspectives. And I also thought that a lot of our kids, especially the ones that we want to call struggling learners, especially the ones that we want to call behavior kids, they are motivated to no end when it comes to issues of fairness and justice. So why in the world would we wait until law school to bring in this level of funk into our day-to-day instruction? So that's kind of been what we've been doing for the last 6 years. We work with schools in 38 states. My book, Thinking Like a Lawyer, I just got word from the publisher. We just topped over 10,000 copies sold in just over 10 months. So again, prospering in the pandemic. That's about to be your new hashtag, Dr. Lee. Prospering in the pandemic. And it's funny how I think about that. So I'm not even sure that but for this pandemic and this like super kind of obvious need that we needed to look at things differently, that this sort of critical thinking message would have resonated the way that it's been resonating. So yeah, nothing but a lot of blessings and a lot of positive momentum moving forward with this work.
We appreciate you, Colin. We met, man. I feel like 5-6 years ago in Edlock. I remember sitting at a table and you stood up and you started talking, and that passion was there. I was like, who is this guy? What is he talking? Like, let's go. And it's sort of going on from there. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing, the work you've done for BMEA. I think our last session was great. I mean, we got a lot of positive feedback. People like, I want to, how do I get them in my school? Hey, here's the information. Sign a brother up. I think that's important. But let me ask you an important question as you think about, and I want you to get the opportunity to talk about, your book that I'm very proud to hear, just a personal anecdote. So your emails, you kept sending me sending everybody these emails about, you missing out on this family piece, this critical thing, right? So, I kept getting them, and I was like, getting them, and it's the countdown. So I found like, let me sit down and open this up. Man, I got my little about 20, I think it was like $10, $20 discount. I appreciate it. I bought the family curriculum. I'm looking forward to particularly my 6-year-old son engaging in the curriculum. I was talking to his mom about I bought the curriculum. We're gonna do this with our son. Like, let's go. So I appreciate you. Those emails matter. Sometimes you be like, but you kept like, hey y'all, look. So I appreciate that. So I got it. I wanted to
for sure.
I got it. So shout out to you. I look forward to engaging with my son in that work, because his online experience is not where it needs to be. So I appreciate you.
I'm with you.
But as we think about this, I have a question for you. So what inspired you literally, and you started talking about this a little bit, to develop Think Law, right? So kind of explain your sort of trajectory from, being a teacher, going into law school, then being a teacher. Can't remember which one came first, but you'll talk about that. Sure. And what outcomes does the focus on critical thinking produce in learners from your experience?
So that's a great question. And I think in the spirit of Women's History Month, let's talk about this for a second, right? Let's talk about the idea that hashtag Black Girl Magic has been trending forever, okay? But what does it mean when a system exists wherein you could be excellent, but to receive excellent outcomes, we got to call it magic? How's that make any sense? That we're yeah, Black Girl Magic, but it shouldn't take a trick. It shouldn't take dumb luck. You look at Mae Jamison out of Chicago public schools, and she just happened to have the dumb luck of having her mom be a CPS badass teacher. You happen to have the luck of her going into high school doing math classes, and her teacher in math taking his prep off, saying, you know what, I'm gonna just go ahead and teach you calculus, even though we don't offer it at our school, because where you're going, you need this. So we wonder why Mae Jamison is the only Black woman to go in this space, because we rely on magic. We don't have a system that's designed to unlock excellent potential when it comes to intellect. We got it. If you got some pro athlete sort of potential, we got it. If you in a church and turns out you can't really sing, but you can sing. If you can sing at 4 years old, you're going to get every opportunity to sing. Every assembly, every national anthem, every Black national anthem, you're going to be all up in every single opportunity, and we're going to develop that talent. But the intellectual gifts, we presume you're going to be just fine. So this whole sort of model around critical thinking is, how do we design a world where systemically we no longer leave genius on the table? How do we make it normalized that being Black and brilliant at the same time is just fine? In fact, it's historically who we've been. So this is kind of what this work is. By giving teachers practical tools to teach critical thinking across different sort of bandwidths in their subject area through our supplemental curriculum, where we use real life legal cases in upper grades and fairy tales and nursery rhymes in lower grades. Because don't tell me our kids can't get all sorts of funky with Goldilocks, breaking and entering, all up in people's porridge. Those are real life violations. That will be a real problem if you try that at Granny's house. You go to my grandmother's house, you try to be all up in the porridge like that, who are you? So when our kids get to analyze information at this level, it's like we're giving them a microphone to actually see the talent, hear the talent that they already have inside of them. So that's what we're trying to go for. We're trying to go for a world where our kids start to recognize that they are scholars. They actually start to internalize that. And our teachers in their spaces no longer do these habits where we're kicking disruptive kids out of class, but we're praising titans of business and CEOs and leadership for being disruptive leaders. We got to leverage who our kids are to get where they need to go. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. A world of critical thinking is no longer a luxury good.
That's good. Yeah, I know in the book, and I've had the book for a few months now, you have, 5 strategies that you make the case can be used to develop critical thinking skills in students. And analysis from multiple perspectives, you say, is the fundamental strategy, and it forms the basis for the other 4 strategies. Can you maybe explain for the listeners who haven't, got deep in the book, what is that strategy, analysis from multiple perspectives, and then why do you say that's fundamental in this work?
So analysis from multiple perspectives kind of hits this really important point that critical thinking isn't just about skills. It's about habits and mindsets as well, like these dispositions. So when you have the disposition around analysis of multiple perspectives, things just look and feel very different. They look and feel very different. You're able to spot things that not other people are able to see and recognize. And a lot of our kids who grow up understanding the angles, who grow up assessing credibility and thinking on their toes, they actually shine in frameworks that are around analyzing different perspectives. So I'm going to give you a quick example, all right? So Dr. Kendi, I was reading something he wrote a little while ago where he was basically saying why he's against Boston public schools having these like tested admissions for kids to get into this like special tested school. And I've seen similar arguments around standardized tests and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, all right, cool. So like, we can look at that perspective. And the way he framed it up was he said, okay, either like Black and brown kids in poverty are just inferior or whatever have you, or it's the tests themselves that are the problem. And I think that anytime you frame something with that level of binary separation, it's either this or that, and it's not this piece in the middle, we're missing out on something. We're missing out on something. Because the way that I would look at it, adding in a different perspective, I was like, well, is it true or not true that education has the power to transform intergenerational poverty? Oh, it's true. So if it's true, what does that mean? It means I need to be able to look into my classroom and see a future doctor, a future lawyer, future engineer, future nurse, even a future teacher. And guess what? They got to pass tests. And guess what? They actually don't have to pass. We actually live in a society that often forces them to work twice as hard to get half as far. What does that mean? It means it's not either this test is racist or whatever. It's maybe we can think about what it takes to teach my kids some game. My kids already have the game in the world that they walk in. They already know how to move. But do we even teach this as a set of moves? If we're being real, we've got 7th grade educators who cannot pass that 7th grade exam. They know the content, but they don't know the format. So we're not going to teach our kids to understand the format. The whole life is going to be different formats coming at them. Like, this scene in Selma that I look at, and I always got goosebumps at it, where they're trying to get that lady not to vote. All right, they're like, well, name all the counties and do this. And then, we'll name the back or whatever it was. It's like, yo, like, they've been playing us forever. We always got to play some game. We've always got to be next level. So at the end of the day, that's a different perspective that I can add to it. But if I'm looking at math and I'm doing a problem and I got it wrong and somebody else got it wrong and I'm trying to argue which one is more right, that's where I can bring perspectives into math. If we're doing music appreciation and my kids are having a tough time classifying Baroque music versus classical music, maybe I want to bring in multiple perspectives around, is Old Town Road a country song? But what's the rule for a country song? Does it got to be about country stuff? If Jay-Z put Billy Ray Cyrus on the remix, does it by default become a country song? Even with 808s and the trap beat? I'm not sure. So this is kind of the value of multiple perspectives. When I can start thinking like this and putting myself in people's shoes, it also builds empathy, it builds understanding, and it allows me to kind of flex my critical thinking muscles more seamlessly.
Show everybody else, technology.
Look.
Here we go.
Go ahead, Marini. Go ahead, Dr. Lee.
There we go.
Hey, we told you to 725, but you may have to give us like 5.
No, you're good. Don't worry about it.
you gave us a lot, so we gonna have to extend the time. I'm sorry, I'm coming in as a
Hey,
guest.
you're a woman. You get this your month. Let's do it.
But Mr. Seale, as a former teacher educator, specifically preparing urban teachers, what you're presenting is making me think that, one, it makes me feel good because as an urban teacher educator, those are the things that we teach our teacher candidates to do, or that's what we profess to do, or what we try to do in the 2 institutions that I have worked as a teacher educator. So I feel good about that, but it makes me wonder about those who aren't in specifically urban focused or equity focused or social justice focused teacher education programs, right? Because when I heard you talking about multiple perspectives, I'm like, well, I mean, no, not to you, but I'm like, well, duh, that's what we're teaching our teachers to do. But then it made me think that that's probably not what the mainstream teachers who aren't in those urban focused programs, which would be the majority of teachers, aren't getting those things that you are offering. So one, thank you for the indictment of teacher education in general. But shout out to urban teacher educators, because some of my colleagues, most of my colleagues, I would even say all of my colleagues as urban teacher educators, we are doing those things. We are teaching multiple perspectives. We are teaching our teachers how to get their kids to be critical thinkers. That is like the foundation. So I was really taken aback a little bit, like, folks really need to know this. So one, just thank you for the encouragement as an urban teacher educator. But whoa, them other programs got a lot of stuff that they need to do if we're still trying to get teachers to be critical thinkers. Just kind of took me back a minute. But if we're moving on to questions, could you sort of make your theory a little more practical for teachers specifically? What can they do to get their kids to be critical thinkers? Like, what can a teacher specifically do? And I want you to answer that in light of the fact that many teachers are now teaching in 2 sort of formats, right? Mm-hmm. Most of them have been teaching online, and depending on what their school reopening plan is, they will be, teaching in person. And I do imagine that some teachers will be teaching in person and online at the same time. So given all of those scenarios, how can teachers do what it is that you prescribe in your program?
Sure. So you know how, like, it's fairly common that we would say we would scaffold certain kinds of content. We will build bridges to certain kinds of content. We would know, for instance, that, like, you're not going to really excel in calculus if you're still struggling with sorts of equations. So I want to make sure that I go over a certain kind of equation before I cover this thing in calculus. Before I write this paper and do these essays, I probably might want to go over a proper essay structure real quick, just to make sure that we're on the same page and we're good to go. So a lot of times when we think about critical thinking, we're not spending enough time sometimes thinking about how do we scaffold that. I'll give you a very concrete example. Phoenix is a school we work with out here in Phoenix, and we got a 2nd grade classroom doing a lesson on Antarctica. And part of the standards they've got to cover is to figure out, like, how do you kind of look at food and transportation and shelter and how that connects to society, while also learning about these continents. So we figured in this kind of partnership that 1 lesson per unit, we're going to, like, think lawify that lesson. We're going to find the funk, we're going to find these different angles and take it to a whole nother different wealth. So in this particular lesson, you're not just learning about Antarctica. It turns out you are actually going to be moving your school to Antarctica for a year. And you've got to use our investigation framework from thinking like a lawyer to figure out, like, yo, who do you need to talk to about this? How do you kind of collect the physical artifacts you need to plan this trip? And what questions are you going to be asking? So what happens is the teacher starts popping out information, law and order style. So I'm getting inferences and assumptions, and I'm checking on when I'm getting this new information. And at the end, I've got this plan. Right? Sounds good. But how do I start that thinking? Well, I start that thinking by thinking about, I need my kids to start thinking this way so that when I get to this activity, it becomes more normal, becomes more regular. So you got a friend that lives in Alaska and they're moving to Phoenix in July. What's your advice? 3 top tips. Because guess what? Our kids have knowledge. They're not empty vessels. They've got experience. They've got values. They've got know-how. Right? So they're schooling their friend about how to do this. And now at the end of the lesson, because our kids also have power, it turns out They just overcame tremendous barriers to figure out food, shelter, and transportation in Antarctica. But here in Phoenix, there in Detroit, anywhere in this country, we've got people that are lacking access to food, shelter, and transportation. So now you and your critical thinking second grade self is going to write a letter to the city council with your recommendations about how to address the same problem in your city, because you can do that. That's how you get it practically, right? Get it, make sure we got the scaffold to it, apply it so we can change stuff. Because who do we want? We want young people to be leaders who innovate and break the things that need to be broken. That's the point.
Absolutely. Colin, I just want to say, man, like what I love so much about what you've been saying and this critical thinking aspect is also just like this critical consciousness. Like you want students to be able to develop these skills, but it's also develop these skills to make these changes. And so I just want to, just as a former teacher, I appreciate so much what you're saying. And it's not evident in the schools I've seen, but it's definitely something that needs to be happening more often. And so, and I also appreciate how much you are emphasizing what our kids bring to the classroom, right? It's not just about the content. These kids have knowledge and value, and that needs to be brought up. So that's just amazing, man. So shout out to you. So where can educators find you? Where can they get in contact with you? Because I know after hearing this, they're going to want to know more. They're going to want to know.
Yeah. So Curtis talked about the Think Law family experience, right? We got a whole tool that we're trying to get these things going on at home. Real talk, our parents already have tremendous critical thinking assets. They might not always recognize it. They might not always see how powerful they can be at home through being more facilitators of discussion and being more of that balance of like helping without being too helpful. So like thinklaw.us/fam, you can get the information about that. If you visit the website thinklaw.us and request a quote, you can do that. You can follow me on Twitter at Colin E. Seale, and the Thinking Like a Lawyer book is available on Amazon. If you want an educator that needs to buy in bulk, you can request a quote to get that directly from us, and we can get that all set up. And with virtual PD being the norm nowadays, like you want to book me to speak at your school, your organization, your school system, we can work that out. And I sell T-shirts. What you know about that? Okay, so it's not quite Rockaware, but I'm making my way up. Maybe y'all gonna make it Rockaware, all right? So if you go to the Think Law site and Think Law swag, you can get that as well. But really appreciate you all and the work you were doing and giving me a chance to share a little bit of this, because critical thinking is something we need now more than ever. So let's make sure we can make this a reality.
You know, as we close you out, Colin, man, first of all, I appreciate your time and effort and the work you're doing across the country. But I want to put this plug in because I say this all the time. You know, we oftentimes go, you know, especially schools that predominantly are serving students of color, African-American students. We go to these various companies who don't look like us to come in and do PD with us and tell us how we should be interacting and teaching our kids. This is a Black brother who is taking his skill set into schools, and he ain't charging us an arm and a leg. Trust me, I've been there. I've seen it, right? People charging arm and leg to come out with no results. This man is talking about what's important, set us up, because this is what's in his heart. He could have been a lawyer and doing his own thing. So I encourage all of us to make sure we're investing in ourselves, even when it comes to professional development for our schools, right? Because we often think if anything connected to Pearson or whomever, that's like the way to go. But it's not. And me and him have had our own personal conversations about this. I've been a believer from the beginning, and I will continue to use him. And there's not an organization that's going to come into schools that I support without starting with this guy first, because he's been there, he's done that, and he knows the importance of the work that's needed in our schools. So I thank you. And I encourage anybody to take the time out to get to know this brother. I've had him, again, in my organization, BMEA, and also in my other life, and no one's ever been disappointed. And people leave there wanting more. So I appreciate you. Continue to move forward. Shout out to you for doing this and making this important to you and your life cause. So, and thank you to your wife who's holding it down too. You know, and it ain't Black Women History Month, but Women History Month, Black Women History Month. Shout out to you and your wife for everything that you're doing. So thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
All right, appreciate y'all, man. You have a great night.
All
All right, you too.
Take care, man. All right, y'all. That was good.
I just made Black History Women Month. Look at me.
I've been here this whole time.
You know, we got Brian. He said thank you. You know, appreciate you tapping in with us, Brian, and just looking at the chat here. All right, you all. Let's jump in. We have some topics to get into. All right. You know, it seems like you know how it is. Every couple of weeks, there's something.
Every 2 weeks, there's always some
stuff that we need to just talk about. vent out loud, make sense of. So I'm gonna show this first clip because I think most of us probably voted for Biden on this call, but he's been kind of disappointing us a little bit. I don't know if I don't know if it's.
Don't go
I'm not going
right
political with it, but I'm just saying. I saw a meme. Listen, I gotta say that I saw a meme that said 2,000 immediately, 1,400 immediately, 1,400 for some people. I talked the stimulus. Remember how they thought it was gonna be? But anyway, let's jump into this because we're gonna keep it on education focus. But I'm just saying we side-eyeing the Biden administration. So here's what they had to say about testing here in Michigan.
Michigan K through 12 schools will resume standardized testing this year after skipping last year due to COVID-19. All of this comes after Michigan and several other states' request to waive testing was denied by the Biden administration. The U.S. Department of Education, however, is allowing states to explore other testing options in the era of virtual learning. Michigan.
Oh, there we go. I want to see that twice. So, context is that schools, we're actively putting together our plans to administer these tests. Like, what does it mean? I mean, kids been at home on computers for a year now, yet we still need to take these tests that we know don't really measure intelligence and critical thinking. I'm just throwing it out there to the group. Dr. Lee, you want to kick us off with this?
Do y'all want me to tell the truth or do you want me to be nice?
No, I want you to tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
The only thing we're going to test is how well we have been able to stay alive, or how well these parents can take the test for the kids, or how well teachers have not lost their minds. So what are these tests really going to, what can they really tell us? Really, right? If they were problematic before, how are they any less problematic now? I don't understand what the administration thinks they're going to get from that data. I mean, if you just want us to do something to prove that we're going to use the money wisely, we can think of another way. So, Mr. Cardona, or Dr. Cardona, because I know you're one too, I would ask that you rethink that one.
Mm-hmm. Whoever over the SAT, they must have some big strings. They can pull some strings up there with the Biden administration because it don't make any sense. And you would have thought Betsy DeVos made this call the way this didn't make no sense. So,
I'm trying to stay cool, y'all. I talked about this a month ago.
Stay cool. Get fired up.
Emotional health is important. So I want to go on 10 because I'm like, and here's the thing. I feel like this is the last straw for a lot of people. And I'm going to go political for 5 seconds.
Go there.
10 seconds. This is that space where people are like, you know what? I think, Trump in office, again, I'm an independent because I don't trust nobody really at this point. But my point is, we at this point where we're like, you know what? He's talking this, and this, and this. We're going to be good. He gets in here and one of the first decisions he make is to test the kids. When they know, and like to me in my head, I'm like, did we just get punked?
Right.
And we not talking about it, not a topic. When we started with the student loans, that already got me.
Oh,
right.
I was already done in my head. With like, bro, what? Like I literally call him bro, what? Joseph. And then he continues on with this whole, and then your administration and your Secretary of State, who's supposed to be an educator, all about their life. I'm glad. But what difference are you like? Yeah. But to Brian's point, I hear you. Money at the end of the day, absolutely, You're right, Brian. Money at the end of the day, it's almost like the root of white supremacy.
Right.
I'm say it's the root of white supremacy. Like at the end of the day, it's about money. So even them got convinced. Even this man who just got in the he just got sworn in. Like, didn't he just get approved like yesterday?
Yesterday.
Right. You make a decision before you even got sworn in. So it's just unfortunate because you, as a person who try to believe in voting and the importance of that, like you lose hope a little bit. And I'm not saying let's lose hope, people, but I'm saying is what we gotta do is hold him accountable
and fight. I'm sorry.
I agree.
Outside of the systems, I'm advocating that parents opt out, and I will show them how to do it.
Let's do it. I'm with you.
Because at the end of the day, colleges is also a money situation. So if those test scores drop, all they're going to do is have to take account for that. So the only thing that's benefiting from this is the people that are making money off of the test. Them scores are going to drop as they should, as we can assume they would. And them kids are still gonna go to college because college still gotta make their money.
Well, but also you gotta look at it like this. I mean, I thought we were, how we say the pandemic highlighted some things that needed to be changed. I was happy about, one thing I liked last year that I felt college acceptance was based more on a student's merit or, an essay getting to know the student. Yes. It wasn't the test score. But it's like, wow, the first opportunity, y'all slapping it right back. And, I feel for students that are, especially at all levels, but I work at a high school, but I think I feel bad for juniors who now have this pressure of like, oh, wait a minute. So now I have to get this high SAT, ACT score to hopefully get into such and such school. It's really unfortunate, but it's also why I always preach resilience to our students, because I'm never convinced that the system is going to be switched to work in our favor. So
you preach resilience, and I'm gonna preach revolution.
I like
they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand.
They do. Absolutely,
hand in hand.
Yeah, I like it because we need people on both sides, because even though we still operate within the system, at least me currently, like just my professional role. So it's like, yeah, I'm pissed off. I got to plan for this test, but I'm also trying to figure out how to, I still want to encourage my students to be able to, if they are going to take it, to do their best. So it's struggling, and it's a struggle for me personally at times.
And I understand that it's a luxury for me, as someone who functions outside of the system, to say the things that I say and to preach the things that I preach. I'm gonna still preach them. I'm gonna just try to empower parents to dismantle the system in the ways that they can.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like what Mr. Russell Harris just said, what the test scores impact teacher evaluations as well. That's a question that, I can't answer right now. I don't know, but that's another part of this, right? Because the way, and I don't know what the state of Michigan is doing, but standardized test scores are a part of teacher evaluation. So I haven't yet heard, what adjustments may be made, but that'd be something definitely to stay tuned. Maybe we come back to that in 2 weeks and see if there's been an update on that.
Yeah, I think I just heard something. I don't know how much is true, but I know Michigan has done 2 appeals, and both was denied, but they just try to use the map testing, the other testing. I'm drawing a blank of what we call it testing. Well, not the MSTEP, but like the kind of testing we're calling them. Use those, the benchmark testing, as a way to assess and be a substitute for those standardized tests. And I heard somebody just text me saying that was the case, that it got approved, but I'm not sure, so don't hold me on that. But we will confirm that by the time we come back in 2 weeks, because because the state of Michigan did say we can use benchmark testing as a way to show students growth over time, right? And so they were advocating for that to the state. Again, they got denied twice. Problematic. But I think I got some. This person is a legit source. I'm acting like I'm working for CNN right now. My source said, we'll double check, and we'll confirm that in 2 weeks for sure.
All right, cool. Let's move on. Now, I wanted to bring this question up because we have Dr. Lee specifically. I think she's gonna bring some context to this, and maybe we get a little debate going. I don't know, maybe not. But a lot of times people, I feel like a lot of people say they're about doing this work of, making schools better for Black and brown children, and also just, all children, right? And I feel like we're starting to hear a lot of buzzwords personally. I don't know, because I feel like we're saying things, but things are not really changing, or people not saying specifically what should change. But 2 terms in particular I hear: that we're going to dismantle anti-racist practices in schools. And I hear a lot of, equity is kind of, a couple years old now, but people still talk about equity work. Help me draw some distinctions here. Like what do we really need to be doing? What do we mean by those terms? Are they the same? Are they different? Help us out and let us know what should we really be focusing on? What does it actually mean? Instead of just saying you do some work.
Right. So I do think that there is a distinct difference between anti-racism and equity work. And you can even qualify equity, you could say racial equity. In my opinion, my professional opinion, personal opinion, political opinion, anti-racism is a method, right? It's a corrective measure. Equity is where we're trying to go. Equity is the mountaintop. Equity is the state of being that we're trying to get to. Anti-racism says we recognize that we are Oh, I was about to cuss. I'm sorry. Recognize that we have areas of growth, right? We have challenges. We have racism, which is bad. And we need to get towards equity. And anti-racism is where you start. I mean, and if we're going to be honest and real, anti-racism is kind of, the medicine for white folks, right? Not that Black folks can't act in racist ways. I'm not going to say that Black folks can be racist, because then we got to talk about what racism is. But my point is the distinction between anti-racism and equity is one is a means to get to the other, and they are not the same. We are far, 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 far from equity. What is happening now, what I've seen, particularly in my prospering in the pandemic, doing professional development with organizations, folks are quick to say we are anti-racist. Will change their websites, all of their literature, but are their policies and practices still the same? Absolutely, right? So it's real easy to throw out that buzzword to say I'm anti-racist, or I'm trying to be anti-racist. But again, what does that mean? What it should mean is that you are recognizing that racism is a thing, is prevalent, and you're going to try to correct that, walking towards equity. Which is about fairness, not equality, because then we got people use equity and equality interchangeably, and they're not the same. Because if I'm in a hole that's 6 feet and you're in a hole that's 2 inches, what is equality going to do for us? Well, it's not going to do, excuse me, I'm about to cuss again. It's not going to do much. Not going to do much for me, but it'll do a whole lot for you. So equality doesn't lead to equity. Equity is about fairness. So I feel like I'm rambling, but to sum it up, anti-racism is the tool that's in the backpack of the mountain top of equity that we're trying to get to.
So let me ask this question, and maybe Mike or Curtis. I'm gonna just play the provocateur for a second. So, but this is a real question that I think people will deal with. Okay, so we all work in predominantly Black schools. So where and how does anti-racist practices exist in like the schools that we're familiar with? Like, do they? I mean, hopefully they don't, but like, because I guess I'm thinking of, because I think some people can fall into the trap of assuming if I'm Black and my kids are Black, okay, well, I'm not worried about this, right? But they don't go, there's deeper things they can do. So I'm just curious what you all think about that. We'll try to get Dr. Lewis back in just a second. But Mike, if you want to jump in, or Dr. Lee, anyone can have it.
So I think you mentioned it earlier. We are all raised in this system of oppression, and so you can be a soldier of that oppressive state. You can be Black and still have racist ideologies. You can still have practice the system in which we're teaching in, and a lot of stuff that I had to unlearn, because a lot of what education is, a lot of how education is set up. Specifically, public school education is set up to keep Black folks down economically and politically, right? It's to keep our kids to be compliant. You know what I mean? A lot of what Colin was saying about this free thinking and this critical thinking, like they're not doing that in the schools. And so oftentimes people think like, oh, okay, as long as I don't say anything racist, then I'm not racist. As long as I'm not beating our Black children, I'm not racist. So they're thinking as long as I'm less evil, but it's a lot of the underlying implicit bias. It's a lot of the content, how you deliver. It's a lot of I'm not delivering rigor to my kids because I don't think they can do it. That's racist. You know what I mean? The deficit thinking. So it's and to be honest with you, think about what Dr. Lee was saying. This equity work and this anti-racism work, a lot of it has to do with like you doing the work and not just saying the words. This is people just saying we're going to do this, saying we're going to do that. But then we look at what y'all practices. Y'all not willing to change those things. There's not actually any change. You take the PD, you go about your business. You spend the money, you go about your business. You didn't change anything. You celebrate Black History once a month. Your kids is Black every day. You didn't change anything. So, I mean, that's my piece. I feel like I'm rambling now. Dr. Lee, go ahead.
Hey, listen, that's what we want to hear. We got the great Dr. Lewis is back. The topic got so hot, his computer just malfunctioned. He's back. You want to add on? I know you've been kind of hearing the conversation. Any thoughts you want to add to that?
I don't, man. Well, I do. I ain't gonna say I don't, but I'm gonna put it this way, man. I think, we have to be very careful who we align ourselves with, and when we start talking about, anti-racist schools or policies, people don't want to do the work. right? It is very cute and very simple to talk about it and have these PDs, right? To Dr. Lee's point, I've done this across the country. I've done this across the state, PDs, but who really wants to do the work, right? And a lot of people don't really want to do the work because guess what? It challenges their own power, right? And then we talk about power is real. Power and money is connected, right? And so a lot of people don't want to really do the work. And honestly, some of us who look like us, right, also struggle with this because we are our lives have been so embedded with white supremacy. We don't even know what we're in. We don't even know we're in the web, right? And we get start saying stuff, experiencing stuff, and talking to kids certain kind of ways, and doing like it. They don't even realize that they're playing a part in this in this system, right? So we can have all black schools who get caught up in standardized tests, right, and preparing kids to be a certain way, and don't even realize that they're caught up in the web, right? And so, I would also, argue that, we talk about, white folks a lot. It's some of us who I think are dangerous, and we there's enough of us, and it's not enough. Let me careful. There's a lot of us out here running schools with racist values and procedures and policies. Let's go with uniform, the way we want kids to act, the whole slant stuff, the way we interact with our parents, the way we grade. Don't get me started. If you ain't doing restorative practices in your school, you are not talking about anti-racist behavior. If you got kids talking about uniform, you ain't really about their life. Let me stop, y'all. I'm gonna be quiet.
No, I mean, hey.
Oh, let them know. Let them know.
I wanted to hear.
Brought up the point about us, because I've started to even hear this in teacher candidates of color, thinking that they can't be racist. Baby, if you doing the same thing that Becky is doing, just because you got this brown skin doesn't mean that you're not racist. Matter of fact, it's probably even more damaging for our kids to have you do that to them. So I need us to be a little more reflective too. We don't get a racial equity or anti-racist pass just because we got this skin, right? Because I know of plenty of us who throw us under the bus. And I'm glad that you brought up, I forget which one of you said it, but about expectations. That's probably the most racist way that we colored folks of color, whatever we call ourselves nowadays, most racist way that we harm our kids is by having lower expectations. You talked about how we deal with our parents, right, as educators. And I'm gonna light us up because I'm one of us, right? We are quick to demonize parents. And that's not to say that we don't have some trifling parents, but if we subscribe to the ways that the world looks at our parents, we are just as racist as the white folks that we are putting on blast right now. Rightfully so, but we all need to put ourselves on blast. That's why I do this equity work. It starts with identity. Who are you? Who have you come to be? Who are you in that classroom right now? And who should you be? Who do you need to be for that kid? Who is that kid? Right? It's pretty hard to be racist with someone that you actually know, but it's really easy to hold someone up to a stereotype, something that you've seen on TV. But if you really get to know that little Marini that's in front of you, it's going to be mighty hard to enact those racist policies. So I think a question that we need to be asking is who are you? All right, you say you an anti-racist, but what does that mean? I'm gonna be quiet.
All right, okay. So I see how this is going to talk. We're gonna have to have Dr. Lee back. I want to do a part 2 of this because just on my personal journey, let me just say it real quick. I think we look at it where you do good work, and we see students achieve, the students that, we see success. But then what I've started to really focus on personally is like that small subset that just not with this school thing. You know what I'm saying? Like the ones who just really don't want to be like, and I'm looking like, okay, something's wrong with this system if we can't get across, or if that student doesn't feel a part of it. Like, yeah, we might have the 90% that's graduating, the 95 that's graduating on time, but what about the other? Like, we can't just assume because we in certain systems we get most, but we still have to look out for that minority of our students as well. And I think that's where we find some of this they would try to describe it where it's like, oh, well, such and such ain't doing this. We don't put on the kids, but we're not looking at the practices or the actions that we are doing as adults and what we're setting up in our schools. But we're doing a part 2 because I think that's a
real quick. That 90% you talking about, 75% of them are ready to do anything beyond college, beyond high school. So even in that 90% that we get through, the expectation has been low. Right. So even in that 90%, I would say 15% of them are really prepared and ready like we should be. And part of being culturally responsive and being about this life is having that high expectations and high level of support, that we're holding expectations and rigor and also supporting our kids. We ain't doing that. So literally 80% of them not ready.
Cause we make
not ready to do anything. Like they
make getting to college, the Super Bowl, like that's it.
Right.
And then what? Remedial math or remedial English.
Just get there.
Wasting their money.
Just get there. That's it.
But we said we're gonna do part 2. It's 7:50.
Yeah, we're gonna do part 2. All right. Real quick. It's Women's History Month.
Yes.
We have a great video that's gonna lift our spirits.
We need it.
Showcase. We're gonna show this, and then I have a question before we close it out. So let me get this going.
You owe me an apology. I have never cheated in my life. I have a daughter, and I stand what's right for her.
A Black woman can be strong and stand in her power in every single way.
You kind of try to fill like your space with a bunch of people that you think is making you happy.
Dream with ambition. While I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last.
Ain't my fault that I'm out here getting loose. Gotta blame it on the goose. Gotta blame it on my juice, baby. Ain't my fault that I'm out here making news. I'm the put it in. I would cry about my fucking skin.
Beautiful, I am beautiful.
Blame it on my juice. Blame it on my juice.
Then if there's no one like me, pay me what I'm worth.
Blame it on my juice. Blame it on my juice.
All right. Yeah. There we go. So, shout out to BET and also the filmmaker, Devon. I forgot his name, but I'm going to link him in there because he actually produced it for them. But the question is, who was a female or woman that, I like my Dr. Lee. She be saying, hey, what we calling ourselves? I said female or woman. I don't want nobody getting on my case. Who was a woman that inspired you to do this work in education? And let's keep our responses, relatively short.
We'll be short.
Okay.
Mike, why don't you kick us off?
It's Women's History Month, and you starting with a dude? Come on now.
There we go. Hey, call me out. Go ahead, Dr. Lee.
I was like, ooh.
I'm not even ready to go. Look, I was like,
I just ain't want to be, go ahead. Never mind.
We're just gonna leave the best for last, but it's all good.
Right, that's kind of what I was thinking. That was kind of what I was thinking.
I'm messing with you. I love y'all.
Go ahead, Dr. Lee. It's all yours.
I think I wanted to get mine over with because I'm not emotional, but if I'm I'll just tell you. So the woman who is most responsible for me being an educator, her name is Joyce Kelly, and she passed away. She taught me that the fundamental aspect of teaching is love. We are loving children. And that was who she was. That's how she was. She taught with her mind, body, and soul, but it was about loving children. And so that is the woman educator who I would like to highlight this month, because she is. I wouldn't be Dr. Lee if it wasn't for Joyce Kelly.
Cool. I'm gonna jump in real quick. Then I'm gonna let Mike go. Then I'll let you close this out, Curtis. I want to highlight my old pre-calc teacher, Miss Lewis, who on a random day, I've told the story a few times, told me about a program at Michigan State when I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with my career. She said, hey, you should look into this summer program because it's for people who want to be a teacher, and I think you may be good for it. At this point, my grades weren't great. I wanted to go to college, but I didn't know how realistic it was. And that program really changed my life and changed the trajectory of just my life, I would say. And she was just doing her thing as a teacher. Like she didn't plan. She just doing an everyday job as a teacher. And that one little move had all this impact on my life. So I always give her credit. And I saw her a few years ago when I was teaching, ironically. And I told her that. So that was cool. Mike.
Man, I can't. It's hard to place it all in one woman. You know what I'm saying? Outside of my family, I think that like when I first think about it, I think about my grandmother who was an early educator in New York, and look, the most important part about her was like she instilled pride in us, and she talked about how important it is for Black children to be proud of themselves, and that is like the root into all success and confidence in learning. Because she taught kindergarten early learning. That we have to be proud of ourselves, and I think part of that was what I wanted to do when I give back to kids and to teach was to make sure that they're proud of themselves too. So I'd have to shout out Patricia Ball, my grandmother. But I had some amazing professors in college too. Dr. Elu, I want to shout her out from Spelman and Morehouse College. They didn't necessarily inspire me to teach, but they definitely inspired me to succeed. And so I shout them out too during Women's History Month.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, I'm always shout my mom and grandma out first and foremost because, like, they was at home educators, right? My grandma taught me all kind of life lessons. So I still use those don't take no wooden nickels. I was like, wooden nickels? What does that mean? Oh, got it. Makes sense. I got it. Still use that to this day. So, and my mom instilled us the importance of like just going to school and just trying to be the best version of ourselves. So they always get the initial shout out. But I had a teacher, Miss Bertha Hill, who's my 8th grade teacher, man. Like, was interested in math because of her, and her sense of like enthusiasm for math, but her sarcasm, her love. She had that radical love. Like, I'm gonna love you enough to hold you accountable. And I remember when I didn't get into the high. I always tell people this story. I'm not gonna go to that story, but I didn't get into this high school I wanted to get into because they was on some BS. But she like made me get up and take this other test at this other school, and literally helped pay my tuition for a couple of years for me to go to this school because she believed in me, right? And and I got to thank her. She passed away a few years ago in 2018, but I got the opportunity, and I was able to. Well, I didn't get a chance to speak at her wedding, but I sent a message for somebody to speak on my behalf, which I actually regret not being there to speak myself. But whatever, that's another conversation. But I got the opportunity when I got my doctorate degree. My mama had like this big celebration. I got to celebrate her and give her like this trophy and talk about how important she was. Like, I wouldn't be here without her. So women just in general, like, I talk about even MSU, they have just held it down for me. I think men suck as far as mentoring. I'm just playing. But this is why we have BMEA. I'm trying to like change that narrative, right? But like women have held it down all the time. And I just appreciate all of them. But she's definitely one that has held it down for me. And I'm the man I am because of her, and an educator that I am because of her.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank everyone for being on the show tonight. Definitely want to thank Dr. Lee. You are an amazing co-host. I mean,
amazing. We gotta bring you. Forget Jerry. Jerry is out. I'm just kidding.
Oh wow, that's gonna be funny. I'm gonna make sure Jerry sees this.
I'm sure he will.
So I want to thank you for being on the show tonight. Thanks to everyone in the comments. We had a good time, and we will be back in 2 weeks. So March 18th is the date. That's 2 Thursdays from now, 7 p.m. We'll be back here live. So I just want to once again say thank you on behalf of BMEA for tuning in, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Peace.
You are now listening
to the Black Male Educators Alliance podcast.
Lifting our voices.
Lifting our voices.